Great.
for doing this, first of all. And I seem to remember interacting with you quite a few times on social media over the last a bit of time, I think, if I recall. And you're in a much better place, so it's great to see. Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's really cool to talk to you, after the previous conversations we've had.
Sure.
I've come a long way.
Yeah, you have. That's so great to see. So, if you don't mind, where are you located, Rebecca? By the way,
I'm in Illinois
you're in Illinois,
on the North Shore.
the North Shore. I lived in when I grew up as a kid. I lived in South Chicago area.
Nice.
Chicago Heights, like Homewood, Flossmoor, that area. So, and then Northwest Indiana a little bit later. So I'm pretty familiar with that part of the country. So, for those that aren't aware, you got a very sort of interesting story, and it is wonderful to see where you are now. So, because I know how how sort of where you were position was, and wasn't a good place. But can you talk about that? Can you give us a little background on your information?
Yeah. So I have been diagnosed with over 10 autoimmune diseases, and that was a piece in itself. But more recently, I was battling a chronic C. diff infection, and it was taking my life. I started to lose rapid amounts of weight. They didn't diagnose me with it until pretty much almost a year after I had it. I had taken 13 rounds of antibiotics, resistant to all of them, got 3 fecal transplants, and I still had it. I still had all the symptoms, tested positive. So I came to the point of desperation. I was in my 3rd emergency room. I was in them all the time because my electrolytes were constantly all over the place. So I was in my 3rd emergency room back to back, and they said, we're going to have to remove your colon and hook you up to a feeding tube, because I was 70 pounds at 5'6". Everything that I was eating, that hospital food, I told them, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to throw up. I've got ulcerative colitis. It was horrible. It was hellacious. And sure enough, I was vomiting. They were giving me glucagon shots. My blood sugars were all over the place. And carnivore, I had tried it multiple times before. And I could never stick with it because I tried just the ground beef, salt, and water, and I couldn't do it. But in that hospital room, I told them, let me speak with the dietitian, and I requested to be fed only meat. So I was actually turning in my meal slips and saying that I was eating what they were serving me, but I was in direct contact with the chef at the hospital, and they were sending up multiple entrees of meat, eggs, and butter. And I was stashing them, hiding them in my room. And I was able to put on 4 pounds, and my blood sugars regulated, didn't throw up once. And that's when I went home, and I never looked back. So it's the total answer. And I've gained 45 now healthy pounds. And I mean healthy. The weight has come on beautifully. Refeeding is such a complicated process. And I know that people who are underweight can really understand that. But with the carnivore diet, it was possible to eat at a surplus without any issues. And I'm a muscle woman. I really am. And I feel amazing. I have total food freedom, no more ulcerative colitis. All of my autoimmune issues are gone. They're gone. I had fibromyalgia, crest scleroderma, which is a connective tissue disease. The scar tissue in my body is now, I have elastic, my muscles are different. My skin is different. I have changed in pretty much every way that you can imagine.
Yeah, that really is amazing. I mean, I know, like, you were in a really desperate place, and I mean, most of us can't imagine where you got to. So, just recap, you started at what body weight? You said, did you say 76 pounds? Wow.
70 pounds at 5'6".
70 pounds. I mean, you were basically, on death's door at that weight. I mean, that is amazing. And you've gotten 45 pounds back on you. That is so wonderful to hear. Medication wise, are you still using medications? Or you been able to taper off medications? How much medication were you on at one point?
Oops. Hello?
Sorry.
Did
I'm
you
so
hear
sorry.
did you hear the question? No, did you?
I did not. I had a call come in. I just had to block it out. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
okay, yeah, I was going to ask, so were you able to come off? What kind of medications were you on at a time, and are you able
Oh,
to
yeah.
come off of those?
Yes. So I took Adderall, clonazepam, and Ambien for over 13 years. And I was dependent on them. I had very severe mood disorders, insomnia, narcolepsy, ADHD, anxiety, really bad anxiety to the point where I was in bed just crippling, and it was also painful. And I have been off of those for a long time. I was able to get off of those actually when I started the ketogenic diet, but doing keto, I was, I mean, I was a mess. I was on so many supplements. I mean, over 20 supplements doing keto. Now I'm on no supplements. So that's another really big thing that I like to tell people. People will see my before picture and think, "Oh, you must have been vegan," but it's like, no, I was keto for a long time, and that there's such a big difference even between keto and carnivore.
Yeah, there certainly can be. I mean, one of the problems with keto is, it can be a lot of things. It could be, literally it could be corn oil and Coca-Cola or Diet
Right.
Coke. I mean, and so there's a lot of ways to do a ketogenic diet in a very unhealthy way for sure. And again, a lot of people sort of push back on this, but many people here know that not everybody reacts well to certain vegetables and fruits, and some people do better without it. And I know that's sort of almost heretical to say, because they're considered, the perfect, cure to everything is eat more vegetables, but that doesn't always work out. Um, are you able to, what about functional wise? I mean, are you able to do more things? How does your body feel in general? I mean, before it sounds like you just could barely do anything. I mean, obviously you've been weighing
Yeah,
70 pounds, you're not going to have a lot of energy or muscle mass. So what's going on? How does your life compare today versus a year ago?
I'm a different person. I go to the gym every day because I love to. I lift heavy. I was never able, body weight exercises before. That's all I could do safely. That's all I could do. And resistance and lifting heavy it's like therapy to me. And I think combining that with the carnivore diet during my healing journey in a responsible way it played a big role in becoming insulin sensitive. Like I said, just my blood sugars, they don't budge ever. It's between 80 and 85. It's been like that for 12 months now. And they used to fluctuate so much. And I think a big part of that is just having more muscle mass. But I feel amazing. I used to wake up and just, I didn't want to move. I was in pain. It's like, oh, great, I'm awake. I can feel the pain in my body. And I couldn't sit still because I was in so much pain. And now it's the total opposite. When I lay down at night, I fall asleep within 5 minutes. I'm comfortable. I can sit still. I probably would have, I couldn't do even an interview like this before. I couldn't sit still for that long without like stretching or just, I was always in pain. And now I wake up, I don't have any pain. I have tons of energy. I'm excited to get up. I get up early just because I'm awake and I want to start my day. And I am extremely resilient. I mean, I lift pretty heavy for my size. Um, and it's not to brag, but it just speaks to the amount of inflammation that I've lost and the mobility that I've gained also with the scleroderma clearing up. I was able to break up all of the scar tissue that was in my back and my neck and my shoulders, and it limited my mobility so much. My doctors are like, you just feeling your muscles. I have muscles in places I didn't know I was supposed to have muscles. And it's amazing. I feel like a new person.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you just, you know, basically got your life back. I mean, this is,
I
I mean,
did.
you really, I mean, weren't really living. I mean, you were just barely surviving. And you kind of alluded to this, and Charlotte's asking a question. So your doctors, I mean, if you're still seeing them, I mean, you may not have a need for a doctor, but if you still see the doctors, have they sort of been at least curious as to what happened? Have they at
Oh
least said,
yeah.
"Hey, what's going on?" And did you tell them meat? And did they tell you to stop because you're going to have high cholesterol? Or what's been a response from your physicians?
So I mean, before the emergency room visit situation, where the dietitian helped me out, all of the doctors diagnosed me with an eating disorder. They said, you're underweight and you're saying that you want to eat only meat. Um, and but after the situation, and they saw, okay, she can eat without complication if she eats only meat. They said, go home, do your weird all meat diet. And I and my other doctors, like my gastroenterologist, my rheumatologist, they saw the weight gain and they just said, keep doing it. That's what people wanted to see. I've been through so much that, and they have seen, I mean, they look at my history and they're just like, we just want to see you happy. If you're happy and you're gaining weight and you feel good, and do whatever the heck you want. And my cholesterol is, I actually have really good cholesterol. My labs are textbook perfect. Um, I mean, there's nothing that they could pin down, even if they wanted to. So,
And what about your family? I mean, your family's got to be happy to have you back. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what's been the response from the family.
So my family, we have a rough history. And when I was going through all of that stuff, even just last year, we weren't really talking. And that made it even harder. Um, since my recovery, I just recently visited them and they're just blown away. I have a sister who has epilepsy. She has grand mal seizures and she's living with my parents. She has a daughter. My father, his mother had dementia. After they saw me, they finally decided, okay, we're going to change our diets. We're going to change the way that we eat. So that to me, I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more in life. And it makes me so happy. So our relationship is restored and they are greatly encouraged also. My mom is going to start eating more protein and lifting, and so it's really great.
Yeah, and I imagine, as other people get to hear your story, you're going to inspire a lot of people to do this, and these are why these are so great. So what does your diet look like today? A year,
Yeah.
a year or so into this, have you modified things? Are you just straight up beef and water and salt? Are you adding some more things in? How's that going for you?
So I tried the just beef, water, and salt, and I couldn't do it because I need variety. I need to not feel restricted. It was hard for me to eat enough with just that, especially in the beginning when I needed to eat at a surplus. So I decided, okay, I'm going to make this my own and optimize it for my bio-individual needs. So I stayed away from, I didn't do any spices, no vegetable matter at all. Just leave out the things that are potential issues, but I made things that were hyper palatable. So I eat fish skin chicharrones. I get fish skins for free from a local butcher and grocery store, and I just descale them, put them in the air fryer, and it sounds crazy, but they're so good. Um, and I eat a lot of beef. Beef makes me feel the best, for sure. So burger, I'll have steak, and then I'm always eating bone broth. I love to make bone broth out of pig ears or chicken feet. Um, Sardines. I just keep my eye out for things that are on sale. And I have a chest freezer and I get creative. So I think, I mean, that's the key for me, is to keep the variety. But I eat a ton also. I'm maintaining, I eat at least 2,500 calories, and I'm maintaining right now. I'm not gaining anymore. But yeah, a lot of beef. Never get tired of it.
Yeah, and Brooke was questioning, is dairy part of your diet?
Not anymore. So I used dairy in the beginning when I needed to gain weight because I know that dairy is addictive. So I kind of used it against myself. Um, and I allowed myself to eat dairy just so that I could put on some pounds quick. And then I cut that out probably after the first month of eating carnivore. And even then, I stuck with specific types of dairy. So the hard cheeses, Parmesan cheese and sharp cheddar cheese, and then just like heavy whipping cream, butter. And that was enough. So I feel better without dairy though.
Yeah, many of us do, and I see that repeatedly. Some people tolerate it, but many do better without it. Charlotte was asking, what do you think, when you're on a ketogenic diet, what do you think was problematic with it that didn't allow you to heal? Can you identify what
Yeah,
you think was going on in the keto diet that didn't help?
yeah, lots of things. Um, the plants, the vegetables, for sure. Is when I tried reintroducing spinach after a couple of weeks of carnivore. My ankles were so swollen I couldn't put my feet in my shoes. Um, so, and I was so achy. So oxalates and the lectins and all that stuff, it's so real, especially if your gut is not in a perfect, pristine condition. I think it hits us really, really hard. And then also just the aspect of the way that keto has evolved. It was hard for me to keep it clean, not even clean, but simple, the way that it should be. Just meat and vegetables. It was hard for me to do that. I love to cook, I love to bake, and I had clients, so I wanted to come up with all these keto treats and keto recipes, and it was so addictive. And it was hard for me to come to terms with that, but God really twisted my heart and and showed me, you are addicted to these keto treats and they're killing you. So to just let go of all of that, I don't want to have to, I don't like thinking about food all day. I don't want to think about food except for when I'm sitting down to eat food. Honestly, I want to live my life and I want to feel good. And I don't like to allow it to have any more control over me. So physical and mental aspects.
Yeah, well, this can continue. Charlotte's got a lot of questions today, but protein to fat ratio, are you a high fat, high protein? What do you skew more toward,
Yeah.
or does it vary, or does it depend on appetite?
In the beginning, definitely high fat, really high fat. But I was doing that because I was actually having seizures. I was in that bad of shape and I needed to be in therapeutic ketosis. I had ketones like 6.0. But after the hospital situation, I needed to let all of that go. And I just had to prioritize, I have to gain weight because I didn't want to be hooked up to a feeding tube and I didn't want my colon to be removed. And I just trusted the process. So I started to lower the fat and ramp up the protein because I knew I couldn't really gain without it. And I felt a heck of a lot better, actually, surprisingly, when I did that. I still stick around 75% fat, but very recently I've been lowering it because I am at the point where I have enough muscle on me that my blood sugars, they don't spike from too much protein or anything. Before I was extremely sensitive. Um, so I think the average person can tolerate, a lot more protein than I once could. I feel best though around 65 to 75% fat.
Yeah, I think that honestly, that's probably a reasonable maintenance situation for a lot of people. And I think you point out correctly that it does seem to, our protein tolerance does seem to change with time. Particularly and again, more muscle mass is a place to dispose of glucose for sure. Something like 80% of our glucose can be disposed in our muscle tissue.
Yes.
So that's, that
Yep.
obviously all makes sense physiologically. Um, and interestingly, that even though you're lower fat, you're still getting the majority of your calories from fat. And I think it's um, I can tell you, having just done a stretch of 70% protein, 30% fat, and that does work to get you very, very lean.
Wow. What were you eating to do that?
A lot of fish, a lot of really, really, really lean meat, mostly. And that, even if you eat red meat, it's very hard to get under 25% fat,
Yeah.
with even the leanest cuts of meat, but by
Yeah.
calories. So, but that's not sustainable over the long, long haul. So you have to kind of have more fat in that. And some people, everybody's going to vary a little bit. So I think it's good to see you're finding your balance, and realizing that it may change as you go through this, as your health ramps up.
Totally.
And we see this with diabetics that
Yep.
initially don't do well with higher protein levels. And then as they regain some of their metabolic health, they're able to introduce more protein into the diet, which I think is actually quite a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and somebody's talking about somebody else is agreeing on the oxalates. Yeah, I think we know enough that there at least is some for some people. How frequently are you eating? I know probably fasting is not something that long fasting is probably not something you want to dabble with at this point, given your history. But are
No.
you eating just whenever you're hungry, and how often does that tend to be?
I am actually, I used to fast so much because it gave me such relief. So I still am a big believer in intermittent fasting. And then also with this diet, it's hard to eat more than 2 times a day, at least for me. So typically I'm eating 2 times per day. I usually do 16/8, but every now and then I'll do OMAD, and I don't seem to lose weight with it. I can put down a lot of food, and I enjoy it. Like I said, I like living my life and having extra time. So it really depends on my schedule and everything.
Yeah, it's got, I mean, and again, put this in the context of you having ulcerative colitis and some of these other issues. When actually, and people get to the situation where they're afraid to eat because they don't know what's going to happen to them, and it can be a very, uh, scary situation. And now that you can just eat to your fill, it's got to feel really good.
Yeah.
So with regard to exercise, you mentioned lifting, and I think that's wonderful for everybody, to include women that often sort of disregard lifting. But when did you find you were able to start lifting weights, coming off the 70 pounds?
Yeah. Probably within a couple of weeks, like 2 weeks, I was back on the machines at the gym. And I stuck to the machines for a long time just because they're protective of my form, and I was still going to physical therapy. It takes a long time to, first of all, gain new muscle that you need and then learn how to use it properly. I was just this skeleton. I was starting at ground zero. But even within 2 weeks, I was on the leg press every day. It felt great. Um, and then I slowly worked my way up to using free weights. And I didn't start doing that until like 5 months in, when I was feeling really, really good because I didn't want to hurt myself. But now I am almost always over at the squat rack or the cables and using free weights. My stabilizer muscles are, much stronger, and I'm confident that I can protect my form. So slowly but surely, and then I would do things like I would literally load up frozen meat in a backpack and walk around with that. Just give me some resistance so I can gain some muscle. Um, because I'm a huge fan of muscle. Like I lived so much of my life without it, and dealing with muscle wasting is a scary thing, and life is so much better when you are strong, honestly.
Yeah, I'm into that. I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's a novel way to thaw out your steaks, by the way. Throw it in a backpack and walk around with that. You know,
Yeah.
I've got a 50-pound weight vest that I wear when I go for little hikes, and I'm actually
Yes.
going to do that today. But yeah, maybe I'll have to thaw out my steaks that way. That's an interesting concept. Did you thaw out your steaks while you were doing that?
I
By
did.
interesting.
Yep.
That's fun. That's interesting. So. Have you, so as you have, obviously, I mean, you came from a place of desperation. I mean, I saw it, I think, a year ago when you were messaging me and trying to, it's hard to just answer questions over a message and trying to get you, but, hopefully I encourage you
I
to eat
know.
more.
You were so helpful too. I appreciate it.
But I wonder now, are you getting people that are saying, I mean, what kind of response are you getting now through the social media stuff now that you're talking about this? And are you getting hopefully mostly positive stuff? Are you getting any negative sort of criticism or anything like that?
No, no negative. All positive, and it's been encouraging to have other people reach out to me with the same issues, and they felt like there was no answer and they feel hopeless, and it's like there is hope. And if I keep gaining weight, I'm just gonna let it come on because it's just encouraging to people. Um, and honestly, there are a lot of people who are underweight or have body dysmorphia who, they don't upset. It's not like they have an eating disorder per se, but it's still in the back of their heads. And I think just for people to see the transformation that I've gone through and see how much happier and healthier I am, it encourages them to dip their toes in the water of, this is scary. Because it was scary. It's scary for anyone to, like, 50 pounds is a lot. And at the beginning, it's like, gosh, I hope this goes on well. Um, but you only have one life, so you have to make the most of it. And but all of the feedback has been positive, and it has been so encouraging. The community, the carnivore community, I mean, that was my support and my encouragement, 100%. And I appreciate you so much, Sean. I mean, just having someone to talk to, even if you didn't have all the answers. I wasn't in touch with my family. All the doctors said I was crazy or I had an eating disorder. So to have that support coming from somewhere is essential. Everyone needs it.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons for this community to exist. Like I said, I can only physically talk to so many people a day, and it's kind of one of those things. But now we have, I mean, because there's 30 so people here, and we have hundreds, and we've got thousands of people on this platform, and so there is a place to go and I think almost all of us are pretty supportive, pretty much towards everybody, no matter what their situation is or background is, and so. That
Yeah.
is, I think, so important, the sense of community, the sense of support. And it is hard to get that. I do think, and there are a lot of, particularly young women that suffer from, it seems to affect women more so than men, particularly when it comes to the anorexic or bulimic side, not to suggest that was what was going on with you, but there are a lot of women that are, seriously malnourished and underweight that go through these things. And I think that a carnivore diet could be a really powerful tool in that, particularly that see
Totally.
food, and for people where food actually hurts them. I mean, and we're constantly told by the doctors, eat more fruits and vegetables and whole grains and people do that and it just literally hurts them. And, it seems like you can't get a physician to say, wait a minute, maybe that's not the right answer. So, do you have people from that sort of community that are suffering from malnourishment or eating disorders reach out to you? Oh, you're muted. Sorry. Looks like you're on mute right now, Rebecca. I don't know if you might have accidentally muted yourself. Let me see. Okay. Hang on. There we go. Sorry about that.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
No problem. Yes. So first of all, I'm so glad you brought this up. Really quick, I actually was treated in an eating disorder unit. This is part of the reasons my family and I have a rough relationship is because when I was losing all that weight for a year and I didn't know it was a C. diff, a nurse in the hospital petitioned to have me sent to the eating disorder unit because I said I was on a keto diet, and my family was so scared. They didn't know what to think, and they forced me to stay there. So I was treated in an eating disorder unit, and I experienced and witnessed firsthand how harmful the diet, the standard diabetic diet that they feed you is. I mean, all of my friends from there, most of them are still in treatment because they think that's the only way that they can eat. And that breaks my heart. So I do also think that this way of eating could change so much in the healthcare industry. Second thing is, I did not have an eating disorder in the way that I wasn't restricting, I wasn't trying to lose weight. However, I mentioned that I was addicted to the keto treats. And when I had lost so much weight, 70 pounds, I was desperately trying to gain weight. It did manifest into a binge eating disorder. And that's something that I have, it's taken a while for me to be more vulnerable with this because it's a delicate subject, but people need to hear it. And I'm sure 95% of anyone who's eaten the ketogenic treats or this or that, they know it's addictive, and it's so easy to become disordered within your eating. There are so many types of eating disorders that are not, they don't put a name to it, but your relationship with food is not healthy. So I understand that firsthand, 100%, and I do work with people with eating disorders. Surprisingly, most of them have some sort of eating disorder, even if they are coming to me for help with autoimmune issues. It's interesting because those who have struggled with autoimmune issues have also struggled with feeling afraid of food. Afraid that they're going to have a flare-up or a reaction. And if they do, then, it must have been the ground beef. It must have been this. And it's like, it's not always food. Sometimes it's just learning how to cope with stress and stuff. But by cutting out the potential interference, the plants and the spices and stuff, and actually getting your nervous system into a supported place, then you can learn to trust yourself and develop a real intuition and ultimately restore your relationship with food. So absolutely 100%.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned binge eating disorder. Many people haven't heard of that. I just did a continuing medical education module on binge eating disorder as part of my license renewal the other day. I just kind of look at the topics that are interesting to me. And of course, this is sponsored by Pharmacy, the education. And so they've got a drug that supposedly, helps with some of the anxiety associated with binge eating disorder. And so that's what's being pushed for that. But really, I just see that, again, and obviously I'm biased towards a carnivore diet, but it just seems to really, really help with that, and a lot more people have this quote unquote binge eating disorder or would fall into that category than we know it. And this is where I think even men fall into this more because, I can tell you, when I was eating, at some point, in my life, I would put down, three pints of Ben & Jerry's ice cream or a box of chocolate, or, you go through these binge periods. And I think it's just having that access to that hyperpalatable, high stimulatory food. But and it's tough when you still leave a little bit in there. And again, we all know the analogy of trying to quit alcoholism by drinking, having a couple drinks a week. It just doesn't work very well, and you end up relapsing. Yep. And I think for some people, and this is and I think this is where we get a little bit of this sort of zealotry in carnivore, because some people will say, well, everything is evil except meat. And I don't hold that opinion, but I do think that there are people that have these eating disorders that, having those foods in their life, for them is evil. For them, it literally is almost a life or death or a disease or not disease situation. Not everybody has that. But certainly some people have different tolerances to that. And so are you finding that you do you have any interest in introducing other foods into your diet fruits, things like that, whole foods that other people might consider healthy. Are you content where you are right now?
I'm so content. And people ask me that all the time. They're like, well, you're going to reintroduce this and that when your gut heals, right? And it's like, but I don't want to. I have no desire. I'm so happy. I've never been happier or more free or more satiated with just meat, fat, and salt, and water. And so recently, I did try some low oxalate spices, and so I was just making some tacos, basically. So I got cilantro, which is very low oxalate, and I did the spices with the ground beef, put it on some romaine leaves. I took one bite and I just threw out the romaine leaves. I was like, I'm not a rabbit. I can't eat this. Like, I just didn't like it. The cilantro, even that bit of fiber, I started belching. And the next day I was on the toilet 3 times as much as I should be. Just, it's no fun. If fiber is, man, I just wish everyone would just throw it out. The spices were kind of fun. It was nice to have spicy food. So I might do cayenne pepper every now and then now. But other than that, honestly, I just prefer meat, fat, and salt. And it's the way to go. I feel the best, and that's what I crave.
Yeah, I mean, and there's, like I said, like you say, you're making tacos. I mean, you can, and we've got some chefs in here that are very creative, and they they're using chicken and eggs in combination to make some sort of bread or crust
Yeah.
type things. And so, do you tolerate those things? Do you tolerate eggs? Do you tolerate other meats
Yeah,
outside of beef? So I mean,
I do now. Yeah.
you can be creative and do those types of things if you want to. And I know we have a number of recipes on the website. Some would be appropriate, some wouldn't, and some are kind of still more keto-ish. But I think there's, I mean, literally, I mean, you're describing some things that you're making that most people have never heard of. Fish skin, type things.
Chicharrones. Yeah.
Chicharrones out of fish skin. I've never heard of that before, but if it works, it
You
works.
gotta try it, Sean. It's so good.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that comes out. But I think there's literally um, thousands upon thousands of ways you can prepare different meats, and you can make a lot of variety if you want. And if you can tolerate a little bit of
Yeah.
spice, it's very easy. There's an interesting book called Arctic Village, written in the 1930s by a guy named Robert Marshall, who was a uh, wilderness conservationist guy who traveled all over the world, and he stayed up in Wiseman, Alaska. This is back early 1900s, with a community of both native Alaskans and then some of the sort of European settlers that lived together, and they lived basically on caribou and pretty much a carnivorous diet. He said that was one of the healthiest, happiest group of people he had ever come into contact in his entire life of exploring people. I had not to just sort of change the conversation too much, but I had a patient once that I met in her 80s, and she needed a hip replacement, and I ended up replacing her hip. Ultimately replaced both her hips, but she lived out in the Alaskan wilderness for 17 years with her husband and child, surviving on just the same thing. Basically, it was caribou, occasionally some berries here and there. And I had asked her about her experience. And this is a year before I ever even went carnivore. And they actually made a movie about her called Year of the Caribou. And the sad thing is her son actually died. He fell through the ice and died and drowned. But despite that, she said that was the best she'd ever felt in her entire life, the happiest she'd ever been.
Wow.
And I guess there's some freedom from all the day-to-day craziness. And this is back in the 1960s, early 70s. But, and even now we're just inundated with, computer, internet, social media, all the craziness, the violence, the unrest, all that's coming to a head right now. And it's just, some people just need to step back and take a break and, get through this stuff. But, so tell me about your, you say your gut is healing. Do you feel like you still have ways to go, or where do you think you need to improve still?
I think that there's always room for improvement. I'm not experiencing any gut issues at all. but I seem to be slightly reactive to smoked or cured meat. And I can tolerate it in regular portions, but if I were to do one meal a day and I eat a lot at once. So, I feel foggy and a bit groggy and not the best digestive wise, but it's not even anything compared to eating the fiber. Um, so I think that I'm probably 95% there, and I don't plan on reintroducing any vegetables, and I think that's the only thing that would really wreck my gut at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and it again shows that, and I haven't had fiber in, gosh, it's coming closer and closer to 4 years now. And obviously it's not essential. We've got this
Yeah,
sort of belief out there that fiber is the end all be all to all things health related. We need to eat plenty of it, and it's essential. But um, you mentioned processed or smoked meats. How do you
yeah,
tolerate other, Charlotte's asking, what about things like pork and
pork.
chicken, fish,
Yeah.
seafood? You okay with those things?
So pork, I used to show up positive on an allergy test, a food allergy test. But I have recently reintroduced it and I had no issues at all. I just don't crave it. Like I crave beef, so I don't eat it regularly. But if I have the opportunity to, if I were to go to someone's house, I would have no problem eating it. And then chicken, it's the same story. I don't crave chicken. It's probably my least favorite meat. I love the skin. It's good, but I don't feel great with it. I think just because it's so lean, and I think chickens are the most toxic animal there is. Beef is probably the safest. Chickens, it's hard to find chicken that hasn't been fed soy, and I do pay attention to the omega 3 to 6 ratios. I eat grass-fed meat for the CLA, and I do notice a difference with that. Not all of it is grass-fed, but most of it is because I feel best with it. And so I do tolerate all meat pretty much. It the main thing that matters is how it's been handled and the preparation method. I love fish. I've never had issues with fish.
Yeah, and your point about the grain, yeah, most of the grain that's fed to animals is going to chickens and pigs, and cows get a relatively small amount, even the ones that are finished on grain. So that and cows have a better way of sort of handling that with their rumen, and whereas the monogastric animals like the chickens and the pigs don't. So there's a
That's a
difference.
great point.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
difference in there. Let me ask you about social life now. I mean, I imagine when you were at your bottom, at the lowest, you probably weren't out socializing and you were just trying to survive. And so, have you been able to sort of, get more into life, interact more with people? I know obviously with the coronavirus, this has kind of made it tough, but um, I mean, I guess I don't know if this question works right now because we're still
It
maybe
does
locked down.
still.
I mean,
Yeah.
are you able to socialize more, and how do you like deal with that? I mean, I don't know if you've been to restaurants yet, or how do you plan on dealing with that?
Oh, yeah. So restaurants, I always tell them that I have I'm, you know, allergic to gluten. I tell them that I usually bring my own fat, so I'll bring tallow or something if they need to cook anything. And I just make sure that they clean the grill and don't use any vegetable oils. And I pretty much tell them that I'm gonna die if they screw it up. But I don't go out to eat a lot because it's more expensive, and I enjoy cooking. It's easy to cook meat, but that's how I navigate that. And as far as social life, it has changed a lot. I had a couple of close friends here, even when I was going through everything, but I lost a lot of really good friends. One of my best friends, I was supposed to be in her wedding, and when I lost all that weight, she said, "Oh, you have an eating disorder, and I don't want you to have a panic attack at my wedding." And I haven't spoken to her for years, and that's unfortunate, but I'm actually grateful. You find out who your real friends are, and I didn't have much self-confidence. I wasn't ashamed, but I didn't have that much energy or capacity to even hang out with people. So, I would go to bed at like 7 p.m. and I would just tucker out and burn out. I didn't have the mental capacity. If you watch videos of me from before and my highlights on Instagram, I was just even talking slower. My brain did not work the way that it should have been. So now I've always wanted to be a social butterfly, but now I can be. And I love to tell people about the way that I eat and my health and how I've transformed my health. And the people that have seen me every day at the gym, they're like, oh my gosh, you're a different person. And like I said, even just doing things like this, I wouldn't have been able to do before. Not at all. I didn't have the confidence, the mental capacity, or the ability to sit still.
You mentioned, all these autoimmune disorders and all the weight loss. Maybe I failed to hear or ask this, but what age did you start this sort of downward spiral, and how long did it affect you, for regaining your health?
It started in 7th grade. I ended up in the emergency room. I thought I was having a panic attack, and they diagnosed me with costochondritis, which is inflammation of the chest tissue, and degenerative disc. Then I found out I had scoliosis and osteoporosis. And then I was diagnosed with all the mood disorders, got on the medications, just felt worse and worse and worse over the years, kept getting sick, diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. It just got worse and worse until even after and out of high school, when I was so desperate, and that's when I was bedbound in pain. And I had to break up with my fiance. It's threatened my life for so long. So this is really, I feel like this is the first time I'm ever living my life, honestly. And it just got worse and worse over the years because I never dug deep enough. And I kept going to the traditional doctors, or even good rheumatologists. They don't have solutions. They have medications and diagnoses. So it took at least 5 years of going to functional medicine doctors, and I got ozone therapy. I did everything. I paid so much money, and I was like, this is not sustainable. So thank God eating meat is the solution, and I don't have to even buy supplements. Like, it couldn't be better. And meat is freaking delicious. This isn't some like AIP diet where you have to look at a list of foods that you can and cannot have. It's just the animal kingdom. Eat the best food there is. And like, how could you complain? So, yeah.
Yeah, and it is, and I think it's sometimes as simple as that. It's wonderful to hear. A couple more questions from the people in the chat. It's just, one was, do you know how or when you might have gotten C. diff, and is that resolved? And then, what was your diet growing up as a kid?
Growing up as a kid, I ate paleo. My mom never gave us soda. She never gave us candy. It was very good. So I have always eaten fairly clean and pretty low carb, to be honest. Even our yogurt was full fat, low Greek yogurt. I was diagnosed with the C. diff after I had been in a hospital a couple of times. And so they say that you can pick it up in a hospital by being treated in a hospital, or potentially from little kids. And at the same time, my niece had moved into our house. So I was living with a toddler. I don't know how I picked it up.
Yeah, I mean, probably at hospital would be my guess, or particularly
Same.
if you were treated with antibiotics as well, that sometimes puts us at
Yeah.
risk for that. What are your plans going forward as far as, obviously when you're 70 pounds and on death's door, you probably don't have a lot of career plans, and, plan is just to survive the next day. So now that you've gotten your health back and obviously in a much, much better place, do you have any plans for the future?
Yeah. Right now I am focusing on health coaching. I love it. I feel like I'm actually living the life that God is calling me to live. And I wanted to do that before I was diagnosed with the C. diff, but I had to put it on the back burner and put it all on hold because I was like, I'm dying. I can't help people. I can't even think. So that's what I'm focusing on. I'm excited to be growing my business. I'm now traveling for clients that need the hands-on support. Um, just helping a variety of different types of people and just major breakthroughs. So it's really exciting. Continue to pursue certifications in health and life coaching. I've already got them, but I would love to add more. And someday I would like to get married and have kids, but honestly, I'm happy if I never do. I'm content. I'm just happy to be healthy and to be able to enjoy my life and help others. I'm just totally content. But it would be fun to have some. It's hard to find a carnivore man who also is, he's woke as well. So maybe someday.
Yeah, and I know some people have kidded around about having a carnivore dating site or something like that, which, we could probably, sort of have in the platform because I'd say we probably have about a 50-50 mix, men and women on this particular platform as it growing. So we got some certainly carnivore. But I think it's easier to find a carnivore man than a woman, I think, or men that would convert to carnivore.
Yeah, exactly.
We see a lot of guys convert to veganism for their girlfriends or their wives, and I think they begrudgingly do that, and then they become mentally unstable, I think. But
yeah, they don't seem to have a problem with the all meat thing.
Yeah, or at least mostly meat, and I think they'd be fine
Yeah.
with you eating meat, and if they could have the steaks too. So I think it'd be easier than you think, probably. Let us know, and again, I want to really thank you for having both the courage to save your own life, and then also to be out there and let other people know what works, because and this is what we really need. We need more and more of these, more and more people to be willing to share their stories. I'm so happy to have, folks like you, and then we have, Super Bowl champ now doing this. And so we've got people that are actually saying, look, and this is what this is really about, just getting results. And we should put aside our preconceived notions and our dogma and our differences and say, look, these are the results people get, and look into that. And that this is inspiring and helping people to do this. And like Charlotte said, this is a really inspirational interview. So thanks again for doing it. Can you tell us where to go to find more information, where you are, social media, if people want to just follow your story some more?
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much. I'm thrilled to be here, and you guys are my family. So thank you 100%. And I'm happy to do it as many times as you invite me. You can find me mostly on Instagram at Tailored Keto Health. My name is not Taylor. I'm very active on there, and all my links are there in my bio. I don't have a custom domain for my website, but the link is in my bio on Instagram. You can also email me at rcfarmer18@gmail. I'm on Facebook as well. But yeah, if you want to find me, just go to Instagram. That's the easiest.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to wish everybody a happy Father's Day to the fathers in here and the people that support.
You too, Sean. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm going to go, I've got to go do a little hike. I'm going to throw my 50-pound vest and go for a half-hour hike or 45-minute hike. And then I'm going to eat some Wagyu. I think I'm going to have some Wagyu steak today that I have in my stash. So anyway, you guys have a great day. Thanks so much. We'll see everybody on Monday, or some of you guys on Monday. And Rebekah, please stop by anytime. And certainly this community is a great place for support for others that are looking for, support like you need it. And so don't hesitate to let people know about this if you don't mind. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Sean.
You guys have a great
Thanks,
day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Bye.